This is a fortune teller in Louisiana that I photographed, and on the right is a warden at Atmore Prison down in Alabama, who's actually, the warden at that prison is also the executioner. So he's executed, I forget how many, like 27 people or something like that. But I asked him, like, is there anything interesting about being an executioner you can tell me? And he said, the only thing that bothers me about being an executioner is that it doesn't bother me. And the way he explained it was, by the time they've gotten to me, they've been through, they had to get arrested, they had to go through the court system. He listed all the steps that they had to get to before they ended up being in line to be executed. So it wasn't like he felt like he was doing anything so awful. These guys had been like convicted 7 different ways before they got to him. This is a fur trapper that I photographed in Colorado, and people say, like, that doesn't really exist. I didn't style this guy at all. This is what he showed up like, and this is what he does. The mountains of Colorado can be pretty wild, and he was just, this is the way he appeared. It's very interesting. When he pulled up in his pickup truck, he had like some carcasses in the back and just a swarm of insects, like what's that character, Linus or whatever was on Peanuts. That's what his truck looked like. It just, here comes this pickup truck with all these insects following it. And a woman in the Upper East Side of New York with her dog. These are like the state bird up there. They're all over. This is a polygamous family that I photographed, and this was one of the hardest shots to get. I mean, we took one trip to Utah or the Arizona border there, where there's some polygamous communities, and got nowhere. Took a second trip and just got nowhere. And then the third time we went up, I knew we needed to do something different. So I ended up taking Polaroids we went early in the morning, like 10 or 11 in the morning, and I just asked the women. There were no men around. The men were all working. So the wives were around with their like dozen kids, and that's no exaggeration. Every woman had like between like 8 and 12 blonde kids. And I said, hey, can I take a photograph of you and your children? I said, yeah, sure. So I did, and I took a woman, did a portrait of the woman with her 12 kids, and I'd give her a Polaroid, and I'd keep one for myself. And then I found another woman, did the same thing. And we did this like 5, 6 times, and I had a whole collection of pictures of women with their multitudes of blonde kids. And then by then it was like 3, 4 o'clock, and some of the men started coming home from work, and the wives would show them the pictures that I took today, and they'd be like, oh, these are nice. And I just kind of like, I'd love to take a picture of all you guys together. And I go, oh, well, that'd be great. And that's what I did. So I withheld the names, so no one knows who's who, and the city is also withheld, so nobody's going to get arrested. Or they won't be able to find where they are, at least. But very interesting community. I mean, the women they didn't seem oppressed. They didn't seem unhappy. I don't know. It's very, very unusual. The pimp on the right he was murdered like just 2 weeks after this picture. He was shot like 5 times in the head in his car. The couple on the left are tornado victims up in right by the Iowa border of Minnesota. They and their 2 kids and dog survived. They were in the basement of their house, and the entire house was removed, and they just were left in the basement. They said they were in the very center of the tornado. They said it was perfectly quiet when it hit, no sound at all. And the couple on the right are lottery winners. They won $17 million in the Oregon State Lottery. He said he went back to work because he just felt like it was the right thing to do, and he worked for 6 months, and his tax man told him, what are you doing? He said, every single dime you're making, you're giving to the government. So he had to quit. There's the Catholic nuns and the prostitutes. It was funny about both these shoots. They were both so kind of friendly and nice. The nuns, when we went and photographed them, and they were as charming as can be. And when we were done photographing, they said, we have a present for you. I'm like, oh, really? Well, they invited us to dinner first. I remember that. And I said, no, we have a flight to catch. We'll pass. Axel and I, we're going to have dinner with like 30 nuns. They said, well, then we have a present for you. I'm like, come to the garden. So we came to the garden, and they all got in a big semicircle around us, and they sang these hymns for us. And it was beautiful. It was just like, wow. I just remember, it's like, man, this is so freaky. It's so lovely. And then when we photographed the prostitutes, same thing. They invited us to dinner. In fact, we actually had dinner with them. They had really good pasta. It was great. Up in the middle of nowhere, Nevada. Middle of nowhere. But they invited us to have, because we were shooting a bunch of girls there, and we had pasta dinner with these girls, and it was nice. And then when we were all done, the owner of this brothel gave us both a free pass for for a free ride. And Axel and I are both married, and it's like, well, so what are we going to do with these things? So we left with our free tickets, but I guess the point is they were both charming and delightful, and and they invited us to dinner. Picture on the left is just we were at a county fair in Kansas, and I saw the livestock competition, and there was this beautiful cow. I chose the cow first, and then I saw the girl with the cow, and that's how I found the girl. But the girl is just as cute. And this gentleman on the right is down in Cajun man in southern Louisiana and he lives. He has a wife and kids. They live in town, but he lives on a houseboat on the swamp. And he says, I can never leave the swamp. The lifestyle down there is so amazing. It's just a fascinating state, especially the southern part. This is Jerry Leininger, the astronaut that I photographed. He went up to meet the Russians in the Mir space station and spent some time with them. He wrote a really fascinating book. Told all kinds of crazy stories about. I remember he was telling us that you'd be sleeping, and like your whole vision would light up, and what that was is a particle of radiation that was passing through your eyeball, which I guess you think you get exposed to all kinds of radiation up there. The picture on the right is an alien abductee that I found through this helmet she's wearing. It's an alien thought shield. And I found the manufacturer, and I contacted him. I said, do you have anybody that has bought your product? And I'd like to photograph them. So he hooked me up with Joni, and we went to visit her outside of Dallas, a suburb of Dallas. And I told my assistant, man, this is just going to be wacky. She's going to be so weird. This is going to be one of those Fruit Loops. And we show up at her house. The kids were at school. Her husband was at work. And she was as normal as can be. Totally coherent, not weird in any way at all. Pleasant, charming, nice, beautiful house, all put together. I mean, just as normal and suburban as possible. So we're setting up, and eventually the conversation's got to come around. I think after I photographed her, I didn't want to freak her out, so I took the photographs, and then after I said, so tell me about the alien thing. And she talked about it as if it was like, oh, she's got to go to the grocery store and pick up some bread and milk for the kids, and I need some. And it was just matter of fact. It wasn't like it was like, oh my God, it's so weird. And I was like, so what do you tell your husband when this happens? He goes, oh, he just knows that I'll be gone, and he takes care of dinner with the kids, and I come back. It's like, it was just like talking about something so ordinary. It was one of the freakiest things because she didn't make it sound like it was anything that unusual, and she seemed very normal.